a pacifist that inspired one of the most insane characters of the comic book world. A man traumatized by his father's crimes, making him obsessed with peace worldwide, capable of killing in order to achieve it. The story of today is about the DC's Peacemaker, who has his debut in the DC Cinematic Universe scheduled for this year, and a completely new series with his own name coming to HBO Max in the beginning of the next year, like Marvel is already successfully doing with its own universe on Disney+. Let's get to know his origin story ahead of the debut in the new Suicide Squad film. But first, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and ring the bell. Peacemaker is the name of a series of superheroes originally owned by Charlton Comics Group and later acquired by DC Comics. The original Peacemaker first appeared in Fightin' 5 issue number 40 back in November 1966 and was created by writer Joe Gill and artist Pat Boyette. The character first appeared as a backup series in Charlton Comics' espionage team Fightin' 5. But when that series was cancelled only after 2 issues, Peacemaker received his own title lasting 5 issues, cover dated March to November 1967, with Fightin' 5 as a backup series. Although a 6th issue has been sketched too and later found online, it never hit the shelves. In the mid-1980s, Charlton Comics Publishing Company closed its doors, selling most of their superhero characters to DC Comics, which also acquired The Peacemaker. It was released a 4-issue miniseries from January to April 1988. Christopher Smith was a pacifist when he made his debut in the comics, and also a member of the paramilitary force dedicated to keeping the world safe. He had a habit of using only non-lethal weapons in his arsenal. The character ended up going into a transformation in 1988 into a 4-issue miniseries. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths arc, which was then debuted at DC Comics, the new version of Christopher Smith was still obsessed with keeping the peace, but the difference was that he was willing to do whatever was necessary to achieve it. "I'm Peacemaker, the unstable anti-hero," exclaimed. "I'm going to kill to keep the peace." Born Christopher Schmidt, Peacemaker was the only child of a wealthy couple. His father, a former commander of a Nazi concentration camp, valued strength and power above all else. He committed suicide when Smith was just 5 years old, and his son saw it all happen. The distraught young man would join the army after finishing high school, where he witnessed firsthand the horrible reality of war. Accused of slaughtering innocents, Smith was arrested and tried for war crimes. While serving his sentence, he agreed to join a secret Pentagon anti-terrorism program called Project Peacemaker. Agents in the program trained on a high-tech military base, but were never deployed to the field, and Smith was eventually released on parole. The idea would eventually inspire Smith to turn to crime fighting as a form of penance for the crimes he and his father had committed. He later founds the Pax Institute. Most of the villains he goes up against are dictators and warlords. Smith later learns that his peace through violence efforts were the result of a serious mental illness brought on by the shame of having a Nazi death camp commandant for a father. He believes his father's spirit haunts him continually and criticizes his every move, even as he tries to live down his past. Becoming a particularly deadly vigilante who would kill at the slightest notice, he begins to believe that the ghosts of the people he killed are collected inside his helmet and can offer him advice. For a time, the Peacemaker serves as a US government agent under the auspices of Checkmate, a special forces unit hunting down terrorists until his own behavior becomes too extreme. He ultimately crashes a helicopter to destroy tanks controlled by the supervillain Eclipso and is reported dead. He then appears on Purgatory, but manages to get out of there when a bunch of heroes try to find a new host for the Spectre. Peacemaker and many others volunteer, but Green Lantern Hal Jordan was chosen. The Purgatory Keepers tried to keep Hal from returning to Earth, but Peacemaker and the other fallen heroes fought the Keepers long enough for Hal to leave and save all from Asmodel, the Angel King. The first and most popular variant of Peacemaker was Christopher Smith, which we already covered, but there were 2 more that appear throughout the years. Featured as League Buster operative in Justice League International issue number 65, Mitchell Black was a pulmonary physician who lost his license to practice medicine following untried surgery that led to the death of a young patient. Later, Black was recruited by the Peacemaker Project as head of its enforcement division. This organization provided armored peacemakers to troubled nations around the globe. It is known that he was killed in battle against Prometheus during the Infinite Crisis. Then in the Blue Beetle comics of the 2000s, a pre-Flashpoint event, a new version of Christopher Smith is introduced, even though he also temporarily takes up Mitchell Black's identity, going back and forth till he settles on Smith. The graphic novel was originally called Who Killed the Peacemaker, as it was actually written to star characters from Charlton Comics that DC had recently acquired the rights to. The most likely reason comic book readers today might have heard of the Peacemaker, in fact, is a comic book that doesn't even involve him. We're talking about Watchmen, the legendary comic series that is almost single-handedly responsible for an entire generation of cynical takes on the superhero. The creators used the DC-owned Charlton Comics characters as their basis for the Watchmen superpowered fascists, degenerates, and madmen. Originally, the plan was to use the Charlton characters directly, with the series revolving around the mystery of Peacemaker's murder. Peacemaker appears in the Watchmen sequel, Doomsday Clock, partaking in the battle on Mars against Dr. Manhattan. Writers weren't content to let Peacemaker become a footnote in future hardback editions of Watchmen. The character reappeared in the late 80s, joining the DC catch-all spy outfit, Checkmate. Peacemaker was also a member of the Suicide Squad, where he will be hugely known for thanks to the new DC movie of the same name. In the comics, he breaks into Arkham Asylum to bring in the Talon a few minutes before the Joker incident. Later, he's the one being rescued by Superboy through the Task Force X mastermind Amanda Waller, where he not only brings back the Peacemaker but also Talon, the famed Court of Owls assassin. They both joined the new Suicide Squad. In a 1989 issue of Suicide Squad, Peacemaker returns during the Janus Directive crossover event. This storyline had DC's various departments fighting in discordance over what the story should really be about in order to avoid a retcon. To solve the problem of this series, it is revealed that Amanda Waller had been playing along with the plot, which is the work of Cobra, a cult leader with dreams of world domination. Clever, huh? Cobra schemes to assassinate Waller and replace her with a double, but Waller lives through the attempt. However, she keeps this truth quiet and pretends to be the body double Cobra arranged, gathering enough information to bring him down once and for all. It's a twist-filled storyline, and Peacemaker is right in the middle of it. Even with all this effort, Peacemaker's spotlight was short-lived. In an attempt to stop the evil plans of the villain Eclipso, Peacemaker crashes his helicopter into the villain's tanks, dying in a fiery explosion in 1993's Eclipso issue number 13. Lastly, but definitely not the least, there's the Peacemaker on the Multiverse. Very much like Marvel has done with their comics and is currently expanding the theme to the MCU, DC Comics also used it to tell new stories without invalidating the ones already established. They provided a freer environment to create new stories for the characters that otherwise would never meet. The multiversity of the 2014 comic series sees a threat from outside of DC's multiverse to put the entirety of the DC canon in danger of destruction. Superheroes from all over the DC universe attempt to band together across parallel timelines to prevent these from happening. These different planes of reality communicate with one another through comic books, as the real superheroes of one timeline are fictional in others. Peacemaker turns up in the Multiversity Pax Americana issue number 1, set on Earth 4, an Earth inhabited by the creation of Charlton Comics. It's here that the Peacemaker follows his ethos, all the way to assassinating the President of the United States. So, what did you think about the true origins of the Peacemaker? If you liked this origin, please don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, and like the video, cause there are much more coming. See you next time!